I'll just say it. Like, what they did to me was dirty,
Yeah.
and it's not fair that yeah, I got back on. I was one of the lucky ones, but at the same time, it's like I sat out for 4 months, 4.5 months, and I struggled until I got this happening. So they're not my focus anymore.
Hey, Hannibal here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a truly special guest with us, someone who has achieved basically the impossible in the world of DoorDash. Joining us is the one and only Bud Soda, the creator of the channel Bud Soda Stories. I don't know if you still be putting a lot of videos or stuff like that, Bud Soda. I know I bothered you to get a channel, and you finally got one.
Yeah,
So I appreciate
I
you
did
here.
just post a short today.
Awesome.
I had a bad experience at Walmart. Go figure.
Hey, listen, we're going to be talking about, a food delivery app that I've never heard of. And he's going to be talking about that towards the end of this. But really, we were talking about basically, usually when someone's getting deactivated, it's the end of the road, especially on DoorDash. But this man was able to do the impossible, able to get back on DoorDash after multiple appeals. So we're going to be diving into his story and also talking about his history with gig work and some of the insights he has gained along the way. So, Bud Soda, hope you're having a fantastic. I know you're working right now, so appreciate the time. I don't want to take up too much of your time, obviously, but
It's a Tuesday night. I already did
yeah,
my
usually
heavy work.
Tuesday. Yeah, usually Tuesday's a little slow. But real quick, everyone knows you. Everyone knows you. But to those who don't know you, tell us a little brief history of why you are doing gig work. Are you full time, part time? Like, tell us a little bit of your story, your backstory of how you came to be Bud Soda.
So I'm full-time gig worker. I've been doing this full-time since November of 2021. I slipped and fell on black ice, and it was a need and necessity. I was detailing cars for a day job at that point. I was already doing this part-time, so I fell on a need of it. I only had DoorDash and Instacart at the time. I applied to others. The only app I don't have that's available in my area is Spark, and either keeps saying zones full when I'm trying to go to it, or it just says error because DDI system's broken. But as far as DoorDash, I got deactivated. I think it was May, and they said it was. At first, they said I violated some vague terms of service. There's a whole live on Pedro Doda Santiago. He even released a separate video about it.
Yeah.
And what they did is I got in contact with a specialized team out of Denver. This team could only pay me; they could not reactivate me. But they told me the real reason I was deactivated is because I reported a store closed that was listed open, and it was an algorithmic thing. So it's nothing I did out of necessary, and it took me. I finally appealed for a third time. It's been about a month now, and they finally let me back in. I had to verify my identity, and they had to manually override that because in my license picture I'm clean shaven and like 10, 15 years younger. So and it was a journey, I'll tell you that. It was very frustrating. I did get depressed, and I tried a lot of different markets, and nothing is quite as good as working for Toronto. It's been a difficult road, I will say that much. I
Yeah.
recognize that DoorDash is the leader in my area and pretty much every city I went to. So I
Yeah.
went to Rome, Utica, Rome area, Albany, and Philadelphia, PA, and well, King of Prussia, but that's part of Philly suburb. That's basically a Philly suburb.
Right. Well, real quick. We can kind of go kind of to the beginning. So let's describe your initial situation, right? You get deactivated. Obviously, tell us what you're going through. What was your initial thoughts when you first realized you're deactivated? Was it something that you thought, hey, this gotta be like, what is going on? Like, tell us a little bit in that time back a couple of months ago when you did receive that deactivation notice from DoorDash.
At first, I didn't panic. A lot of people were like, "How are you so calm?" I'd be angry, probably making a rant video, and um, eventually my market really slowed down. So without DoorDash, which is the busiest, it has the most volume, I started struggling. I took some time off. Um, more out of, like I said, depression than anything else. And then I tried to go out and do that, but it was very very difficult. If I went from making 2,500 to over 3,000 a week to making like 800 to 1,200 a week, it was a very vast change for me. It
Yeah.
was very unmotivating because at first I was making 1,500, 1,750, which wasn't bad for the hours I could work. Mind you, DoorDash is the only app that runs late in my market as well.
Right.
So
Right.
like from 12 to 3 a.m. it's the only thing going. Grubhub cuts at 10:45. At the time, and all I had was Grubhub and Instacart and Roadie. So it wasn't Roadie's not very busy in my area. I get what I can here and there. And it was pretty demotivating, that's for sure. That
Right.
a lot of other people in my area also got deactivated. I heard one other person got back, but otherwise it was 12 people, including me, who got deactivated in my area.
And the person that got back was the same situation that you had, or it was something totally
Yes.
different?
Yeah.
Okay,
He
interesting.
also
Interesting.
marked McDonald's in the city closed when, Mickey D's is typically 24/7, but they are closed because of staffing. So
Yeah, yeah. So when you initially got deactivated, did you think you did something wrong? Like you said, you didn't panic or anything. Did you think maybe someone said that gave them food and they reported it missing, or maybe
yeah,
like,
I did have a contract violation for that, and I'm like, well, I don't have one, so I wasn't too worried. But I'm like, well, maybe of all these times I've had false reports, maybe they're like taking it a little more seriously now. I mean, Nova Dasher, Nova Hustles now,
yeah,
got deactivated shortly after one. So who really knows? And they don't really tell you like they should. Like you don't have to tell me who the customer is or customer information. You just need to tell me what order, what day, what time, and I can kind of figure things out for myself.
right.
And when I did figure that information, it took me 2 more attempts to push it through.
And also, I think they held your money that you earned during this situation, correct?
Yeah, for over a week, and the specialty team I spoke to did pay me,
Okay.
and he said basically he was saying if it was up to me, I would, but it seems kind of weird that someone could cut me an 1,800 something dollars, almost $1,900. They can cut me that big of a check, but they can't say if I'm on the app or not. I'm like, most if you wanted to relate it to W-2, someone could usually cut you a check, can usually hire fire or
Right.
make some kind of decision as far as keeping you on. Let's say you did independent contracting for construction, and that person could probably say, okay, we're cutting you a check, we're letting you loose, we're not
Right.
interested, we're parting ways, or okay, here we still want you, here's this other job you can do.
That's interesting because I made a video about this situation in New York City, in the inner city, with DoorDash deactivating people, and they're still fighting to get the money. And I'm wondering, first of all, it's outrageous. Like, yeah, okay, you're getting deactivated, that's a whole different story. But you already earned the money. They should just pay you out and say, okay, we're no longer doing business. But they have this weird thing. I don't know if it's a legal situation or, like you said, maybe there's some kind of line where they don't want to make it seem like it's a W-2 type of situation, but cutting a check because I guess then you no longer have access to the app. You may not have access to Dash Direct or something like that. But it just seems it happens often and only mostly with DoorDash, where they're deactivating people and they're not giving them their money. And I think that,
Yeah,
I mean, that's just absolutely insane.
yeah, one would think so. There's an option where you can just choose not to appeal and say, I just want my payout.
Okay.
So, like, they're giving you a hard choice. And, most people recognize it. I look at it from a business perspective. It's a business leader. Like, DoorDash is not my main as far as I'm concerned. Income wise, yes, it is.
Right.
But they're not my focus, especially with this new food app I'm starting to launch, and it's going to be off a lot more, especially if we get busy on directly after their market share. In my
Nice.
opinion, the only thing they should withhold, if any, is the payout of the order in question. So
Which
that's
makes
the only
sense.
thing they could have an argument over. So
Yeah,
like,
because that's obviously they think either whatever the issue is, either you didn't deliver it or whatever the case may be, that makes sense. It should that, but everything you did other than that, if there haven't been any issues with that, they should pay you out immediately. This shouldn't even be a question. But um, I want to talk about the appeals process because you were able to get through by basically pushing this, right? Like most people, they may do one appeal. I don't think many people realize that you can do more than one appeal. So kind of go through your appeals process and how you got to where you were, where you did the first appeal to you did 3.
So yeah, they basically told me to ignore when it says 90-day the second time I tried and try to push it right back through. I kept calling support and they give me different answers. Some said 72 hours, some said 10 days. So I waited those periods of time and tried to call back again. I mean, this is multiple calls to these people. And I kind of put it on the back burner for like a month. And I started doing the par works with Food Fetch there. And
Right.
that was a big change for me because I was getting really good easy cater orders. But and then I'm like, okay, then I didn't have any for a week. Okay, I'll try again. I'll call them again. They're like, oh, try to put it back through again because I'm not really seeing it active in file. So it's like it got lost in the wayside. So you have to I had to redo it again, put it back
Okay.
through, and then literally the next week they said, oh, I got an email. They said you're reactivated, and I had to go through the identity verification and all that, and I waited probably 12 hours of that day to get that to be pushed through, but they said it could be up to 3 days. So it's a whole convoluted mess, and honestly, it should be a 2-week process most. So I should have been
Yeah.
deactivated for 4.5 months. I should have been back on in the 2 weeks.
Did you seek any kind of legal or professional advice that help you even to suggest to keep going? Like
So I did
why did you keep doing it? Like, why did you keep
I
trying?
I did that gig rocket. It didn't do anything for me from a rideshare professor, so that was
Oh, okay.
basically just wasting my money. I did reach out to my counsel. He doesn't do. Uh, he's mostly criminal defense, but basically the advice he gives me is because you're in an arbitration with these apps.
Right.
There's not much I can do for you. I can write a threatening letter if you pay me $500, but that's about it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna waste $500. I already wrote one of those kind of things through another legal thing. He's like, well, that's all. He's like, if they did it, that's all I can do too. And it was much cheaper to
Interesting.
do that. So I really feel that there should be a process, steps like Stephanie's legislation that was being pushed to Colorado.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of feels like W2 when you do that. But at the same time, it's only right in my opinion. Let's treat us more like humans, not just a number from an AI.
Yeah.
When you put AIs in charge of stuff, it just goes berserk. Like think back to 2021 and 2020. How many times would you show up to the restaurant and they just be randomly closed or saying we're closed early?
It happened all the time. I mean,
So
especially during that time, daily.
why do you think DoorDash is doing this to probably try to push out people like me? And I'm thinking the only one of the reasons I got back is because they're desperate for drivers who can get on the military bus.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I got back on, I was dealing with angry customers.
Yeah.
So it's been a little frustrating, and I'm hoping to basically get all their good clientele away. Anyone, and like, are you sick of dealing with DoorDash? Sometimes the orders get pushed back in a 3-hour log because they have too much volume, and they're not enough drivers who can go on the military base to hand.
Right.
So I feel that it's just an unfair thing that they do, and they really should change it. And I don't know why they're thinking that. I think they're thinking more short-term gain versus long-term. With just here willy-nilly will deactivate you for something silly like a store close.
And you only had one contract violation when this happened.
Yes.
And I never heard anyone getting deactivated unless you did something viral, right? Like you did something terrible. You stole, like, usually for one. I mean, we've all had contract violations. I had more than one at one point, never had to do with deactivation. So do you think it's, like you said, is it just a manipulation, or the AI is not good enough? They know it, but it's cheap. and it does most of their work, and they don't necessarily care unless they need you, right? Like you
I
said.
I think it's the latter, like you said. The AI can do more than the humans can do, but at the same time, when things do happen, they need to look into it. Like I did something legitimate, and meanwhile, there are people who didn't do it the right way. So I feel that there needs to be a fair process as far as that goes. And they're just using the AI because it's cheaper and easier for them. And they're like, oh, we can just get new drivers. But in a market like mine, where we're going on a military base, it's very hard to get drivers. There's triple the amount of dashers in the city versus up here.
Right. So if you, because I want to actually maybe one of these days either have a live stream or maybe just a video to talk about this. Like you also talked about with Stephanie's her idea for a deactivation protocol or process. But if you ran things, how would you handle the deactivations? How do you handle the appeals process? Is it like how would you handle it? Is it just you need to hire people that can just like real people, not people that necessarily are across the pond? Maybe they're based here, but also DoorDash is trying to save money. But if you were handling things DoorDash, how would you handle the deactivation process? If someone got deactivated, how would you handle it where they can get a fair treatment?
You get so basically you could get a response within 2 weeks. They have to give you an actual reason besides you violated this vague term under this vague circumstance. Here's the real reason. You don't have to give out customer information. That's what their excuse is.
Right,
And
safety stuff like that. You
yeah,
don't want a retaliation. Yeah,
and then just having a fair appeals process. Now, if you're coming up to a drive-through and the line's long and you're marking it closed, I'm just saying for my situation,
right,
then fine, you deserve to be deactivated. But if you come up and there's just nobody there and they got a sign or they closed early and they're closing the door is locked, you go up to the speaker, they either don't answer you, oh, we're sorry, we're closed. Then it's not hard to have a team to just look into that real quick. It takes a few minutes.
right,
So I really think that for these things that do slip through the radar, it should be a 2 week process max, and there should be some kind of resolution at the end of it. Either here you're not being back on for this reason, or here, oh, sorry, there was a mistake. It's just a silly algorithm did this. It's saying the store's listed open, but it really was.
gotcha.
So I think that they need to be a better process as far as that goes. Is there a catch-all solution? Not really, but it could be a lot fairer.
Right. So before we jump into the food fetch app, so two more questions. The first one is, so you're back on DoorDash. Are you doing anything different with your strategy, your tactics, just dealing with them now that you didn't do before you deactivated?
If anything, I probably tripled down on the previous strategy I had as far as how I work.
Right.
So I'm not really doing much different besides um, that the only other thing I'm looking out for is to always make sure I get a picture of at least if there's not an address number, I get a street view like of the building. So
Okay.
most of the times you can look that up on Google Maps, and that's the only other things. I'm just basically CYA, cover your butt, and that's the best I can do. And when I know a store's closed early, I just on a sign. I don't mark it closed.
Oh, so you don't call and even tell support
I
anything
called them
about
and
that?
they told me just mark it closed. And yeah, I'm like, you understand? I just got back on for this. They're reading the script,
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, interesting.
so
Okay.
support
I
will
mean, so
tell
you're
you to do
doing.
the wrong thing.
Yeah, so you're covering yourself. You don't want to go through that again, obviously. The last question is for those who have been deactivated recently, what would you suggest for them to do when they don't even know necessarily what they've done? Again, like I said, when they tell you why you're deactivated, it's a very vague algorithm written probably like there's not a human being that may even got to that point yet, but they already deactivated the person. What do you suggest they do?
You have to call. There's an email follow up, and someone will respond to that. And I got very fortunate to put to a higher tier team out of Denver that did call me, and
Yeah.
and then and then I found out the real reason. But the only thing you can do is basically keep trying to call support. I know that's a very frustrating process,
Yeah.
but if it means you're making your money, take the time to do it, guys. So
Gotcha.
meanwhile, diversify. If DoorDash is your main breadwinner, well, get on the wait list for everything else. There's pretty much a wait list for it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
DoorDash and Uber Eats are pretty easy to get on as far as not a wait list. But I had to. That's a whole nother story for Uber for me. And but like, get on the wait list for Grubhub, get on the wait list for Spark, get on the wait list for Instacart. Even if these are considered failing apps or whatever, there's still value in those. And look last mile especially.
Yeah.
You got Curry, get on their wait list. Roadie, point pickup, um, dispatch. They turned me down, unfortunately. And the more you can diversify, the better, and learn how to stack accordingly with those apps. So, how can I make that $40 for 50 miles for a small shop on Instacart work if they're, let's say, the store's right by a Home Depot? I did a lot of that in Philadelphia, and
Yeah.
it worked. It just took more time, and my dollar per hour wasn't there, but my profitability was. I just couldn't make enough money fast enough to justify staying there for a while.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So yeah, I think what you said is actually very very. I mean, obviously you had to unfortunately had to go through all that and go through all the hoops and all the hills and valleys, but you came out understanding a little bit more of, like I said, covering yourself. You don't want to put yourself in the same position that you were. So, it's great that you're able to get back on and able to kind of, because like I said, DoorDash, the marketplace is just huge. DoorDash owns this country at this point in terms of food, at least food delivery and some of the stuff that we have to deal with. So you kind of want to be on, even though you have to deal with all of the bull. But at the same time, I think if you are deactivated, for people who are checking this out, you may have to push and push and push like Bud Soda has, and still look for other apps, still keep the boat afloat, and
So,
hopefully you get someone that can kind of at least give you some more information to take it to the next step. So
so the
I think
other
that's
thing
a
you can do is also through like, this is going to lead to my next conversation, is
yeah.
do what I and Nova did as well, and get on these catering apps. So deliver that, Zifty, another one called Red Wagon that's in select cities. They don't have much volume, but anything
Right.
matters, and stack those up. If you think you can stack them up appropriately, be very careful doing that. Don't go 6 orders at a time like you do on demand orders. It's like I do. But I make my clientele very happy because, like, this morning I had a double, and I called the restaurant ahead. Hey, can you have them both ready at the same time? Because I'm gonna stop the one first. Boom, it was on time, and then I stopped the next one, and it was like 10 minutes. So I've
Yeah.
got two like that tomorrow, and I'm gonna have to call the restaurant again, and because it's two different restaurants this time. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to coordinate with them. They've been working very well. This is another reason to have great relationships with the restaurant. Get on these catering apps. Para Works is really good, and that leads into Food Fetch. So
Yeah, let's talk
because of
about Food Fetch. I did not have any idea about this app until Bud Soda. I was like, hey, excited to talk to you. 8:30, let's do it. And he's like, I'm helping launching, with this app, this new food app. I'm like, what app are you talking about? And he sends me this link and like Food Fetch, and I'm like, oh, another food delivery app. So I'm very excited. I'll put the link to the app in the description when we finish with this. So yeah, tell me about it. What's all about? Where markets it's in? Let me know.
So as far as on demand, it's in Canton, Potsdam, Augsburg, Messina, Ithaca, and Rochester, New York. The only city they tried and failed in was Oswego because
Okay.
they like to be around the college towns. So
Gotcha.
the only two that aren't college towns they're in are just Augsburg and Messina. They're just rural areas back in my home county. This is an app ran by 10 people out of Augsburg area, and I'm basically a driver partner, and hopefully I start seeing a little bit back my way. I can't discuss details until that's all finalized,
Gotcha.
but I've been directly recruiting drivers. So basically, the only people I want are people who are going to give a crap. They have their hot bags, they care to use them, they care about the customers,
Yeah.
and they can get on Fortrum, obviously, because that's what I need. So I have dealt with a lot of rude drivers who have got on DoorDash, and it's been rough.
Yeah.
I've only found 6 drivers. I was
Yeah.
hopefully going to find 10. I have 2 on the fence. They're like, well, I want to see it do more volume first before I onboard. And as soon as hopefully we get the market share because it's cheaper for the customer and the restaurant.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what's the difference between, let's say, Food Fetch and Uber Eats or DoorDash? Like, what's the big difference for the customers, merchants, and the drivers?
So, how they pay us for the drivers is the minimum order is $4 for 4 miles, and then $1 per extra mile. So the worst order you can get is $4.
Okay.
And that's the base bottom. And that's no tip. The suggested tip we went with is 25%. The customer can change it though. There's different levels, or they can get other, so even if there is a 000, well, who doesn't take a $4 add-on in most areas? So
these days, yeah, they'll take it.
It's rough. I took 350 add-ons for a while with Uber before I had DoorDash back.
Right.
$4 for base pay is going to be quite incredible for us. And then we have for the restaurants, they charge about half of what DoorDash does.
That roughly
helps.
That helps.
I've already got some local ones on as partners. We already have a bunch of the national chains for partners. And if they're not, we'll just go through their app and put it as the customer's name, and I just go in and grab it. So that's very, very few restaurants. And it's kind of more of a verbal agreement and it's basically more because it's at a corporate level they decide versus the franchisee.
Right.
And otherwise, it's going to be great. I hope for big things, and I hope our local partners get better. Our next big step is going to be anyone who's not in an exclusive partnership with an app, that their merchant orders go to that app, we're after them. So nice. We want all the merchant-based orders. He's already in talks with a big parts store chain. I can't give away names, but everyone knows it. It's got a checkered flag and the logo. Let's say that. And we're in talks with the other big ones as well. And we're trying to do grocery pickup as well. We want to dabble into that. He said he's tried shopping and it didn't work very good for him, but if he says it goes well for me up here, he might considering allowing small, 15 to 20 items or less, I hope it goes well, and I hope this becomes my main, where this is 80% versus, and the others on my side thing. I'm only using them for a stack or something. If it's a small order, it's just going a long distance.
Gotcha.
We're the only other app besides Uber that has restaurants in the city that will come to the military base. So that's going to be huge for us. It's going to be a huge advantage because Uber charges a ridiculous amount of money. They're one of the most expensive apps to order from.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I really like the idea of people competing, realizing the issues. I mean, you have a wealth of knowledge of knowing what works, what doesn't work, what drivers are annoyed with. Obviously, with what the merchants are annoyed with, customers. So you have a really good knowledge base. So now you can help build other platforms that can, because at this point, DoorDash, Uber Eats, are they ever going to change to really benefit the merchants and the drivers? I just don't see it. I mean, at this point, everyone's a little pissed off at all these companies. So it's great that even in the local level, you guys can find a way to make it work for everybody, and not charge 30% for each order like DoorDash or Uber Eats. You can make it where we're not being so greedy, with taking so much money out of all these pockets while the drivers don't get enough. So I think that's amazing, man. And let me know, keep me updated with Food Fetch. Hopefully, maybe I could talk to some other people that's with your group, and keep me updated. So, I think it's pretty awesome, man.
One last thing, they're partnered with Paraworks, and that's how I met them. And I'm probably their biggest success story because of that. They're in New York City, they're in the greater DC area, they're all across the country. He's trying to get in with Easycater, like deliver and deliver that are doing. He's basically trying to become the next one of them.
Yeah.
And I get all Easycaters in my area now. DoorDash just gets whatever leftovers if I can't do it for whatever reason, or it just doesn't pay enough. And I make things work. Like tomorrow, I got two that are technically conflicting, but I have great relationships with restaurants, so I'm doing that. And having those catering orders to myself is amazing. I
Well,
will say
I
that.
mean, that's a very unique situation. So and one last question for you. How are you feeling? Because I know you were talking about, feeling a little down over the last couple of weeks, and now you're able to kind of you got back on DoorDash, but even more importantly, you were able to really be a part of something that can help, obviously yourself, but help other drivers and merchants. How you feeling, man?
I'm doing a lot better. I still struggle sometimes where I don't feel like getting out of bed, but otherwise, having motivators is a real huge deal. And like, this is going to be a huge undertaking for me because I'm going to have to take a lot of the weight on my shoulders until I get a few more drivers on and getting this thing moving. So if we could be even as busy as Uber, like, I'll be really, really happy because that means we're doing really good volume. That means I'm taking volume away from the big three, especially DoorDash. Like, it's basically, I'll just say it, like, what they did to me was dirty.
Yeah.
And it's not fair that, like, yeah, I got back on. I was one of the lucky ones. But at the same time, it's like I sat out for 4 months, 4.5 months, and I struggled until I got this happening. So they're not my focus anymore. And I'm out to get them. I want their market share.
That's
And
what's
I'm
up, man.
hoping other people can find local regional apps to help grow and start. And there's other partners with Para Works that do that. I know I sound like an advertisement, but this is really, really big life changing news for me.
Yeah.
It's a real huge motivator for me to do this. So I wish the best to anyone who's in this situation and try to look for alternatives and try to hook up with local apps like I'll repeat what UDM said years ago before he revealed Delivered is go on Google and look up local food delivery or delivery apps independent contractor, and you might be surprised what comes up.
Yeah, 100% correct. I think a lot of this is happening. A lot of people are looking for something different. So, Bud Soda, I know you're always a busy man. You're always out there working. I really appreciate you giving me some of your time out here to talk about some really important stuff. And I'm really happy that you are setting up this new thing. We're going to put all the information in the description below if you're interested. If you are in his area and if you're interested in checking out this app, and hopefully make sure you're a good driver. Bud Soda is not one bad driver, obviously. But other than that, man, is there anything you want to promote? I mean, Bud Soda is he is the biggest supporter of so many channels. If you have a gig channel and if you're not weird, he will support, he will jump on live stream, he will talk, he will express his opinion. And he's been doing this from the time I known him. I met him in St. Louis. Awesome dude. And Bud Soda, again, I appreciate you giving me your time. But anything else you want to add before we get out of here?
So the link is to the consumer app, so anyone can check it out and see what it is. And if you put one of the cities I mentioned, you can see who they're partnered with. And soon it will be Watertown, Fort Drum. So hopefully the next thing that happens is we're going to do bigger and better things. And in my description is my email. So if a driver from my market wants to come on board, my email's in my description of my channel, and you can get a hold of me. And I would love to talk to anyone who's on board because I have not yet to find any drivers from the actual city that I like could care to. I've had a few good ones, but I don't know how to get a hold of them because I've had food delivered myself. So I would love that if someone reached out to me. I'm always looking for new people.
Awesome. So we'll spread the word, man. We'll spread the word. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. And you guys, appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. We're going to put the link to the Bud Soda's channel. Check him out. At this point, over 1,000 people know him. So he should be at 1,000 subscribers. Because there's times where I'm going in live streams and someone says Bud Soda's name and he's not in there. So they'd like to talk about him. And again, you're always around. You're always supporting everyone's channel. So thank you very much for coming through, Bud Soda. And thank you guys for checking us out. So we'll see you next time. Later.
Have a great one. Peace, guys.